It's July 4th week here at the Solid Signal Podcast, and we're super excited to have a day off on Friday. I don't know about you guys, but the good news is that solidsignal.com will be up and running, of course, as it is 24/7, but yours truly will be taking a much-deserved day in the sun. And, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court will be joining me in a vacation. Their vacation's a bit longer than mine, and much like a third grader, they all decided to do their homework the day before it's due, issuing a bunch of decisions just as they were on the way out the door. The one we're talking about most, of course, concerns Ariel. Now, I've talked a little bit about Ariel in the past, and I'll admit that I think that it was a great idea. I was very positive about it, and if you look back over old podcasts, you'll find one where I really say some very nice things about the service. And it was a great service. The only problem is, of course, that building your entire business model on a loophole, even a loophole granted by the FCC, which seems to be moving in the wrong direction anyway, isn't a great business model. At least that's what Ariel found out. While it was a little uncomfortable to root for broadcasters in this particular fight, considering I usually root against them, the truth is that they were right. You know, I'd love it if the Supreme Court had come out and said, well, you know, anytime a broadcast feed leaves the antenna, that it's fair game for anybody to pick it up and retransmit it. But that's just not how the case law goes. And at the end of the day, because the commercials that broadcasters put in are often overwritten by pay TV providers, and that's not a bad thing, it would have meant that there would be no way for broadcasters to make any money. And that would have been probably the end of broadcast television as we know it. And the fact is, we're just not ready to go all streaming yet. Now, what will probably happen is that there will be some rejoicing, or there has been some rejoicing at the offices of CBS, Fox, and ABC, who have been cooperating to take down Ariel, whose website is down today, of course. And then they will go on with business as usual. If they were smart, this would be a perfect time to be thinking about a better way to get content to people that wasn't dependent on a third party. It would be a great way to beef up that streaming infrastructure that they will need. And on the other hand, it would also be a great time to reevaluate those triple-digit raises that broadcasters keep asking for from pay TV companies because they are unsustainable. And all that's going to happen is that it's going to bring down the entire system. Not as quickly as a result in the Ariel decision would have brought it down, but still in an uncomfortably quick period of time. Now, if you've been following this at all in the last couple of days, you're going to find there's some pundits who want to say, oh, well, this particular decision also has a potential to bring down Dish's Dish Anywhere service. Well, that's just not true. Dish Anywhere is based on solid contracts created between Dish and content providers. Those contracts may or may not include streaming, and if that's the case, well, I can't really comment. We are, in fact, Dish dealers, and also I did not read the contracts. But more to the point, Dish did do its best to try to negotiate these kind of rights, and Ariel didn't. Dish understands what copyright is about. Ariel did not. Comes right down to that. There should be no effect on Dish from this recent Ariel decision, so that's not something you really have to worry about. You should also know that you don't have to worry about, for example, your Slingbox or other streaming device or your Genie Go, because the court has already affirmed that place shifting, in other words, moving stuff that you personally recorded out to the web for your own personal use, is still legal. And cloud computing, which in other words storing stuff on Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or one of those, is still legal. This ruling really applies to broadcasting and broadcast law, not cloud computing. So that's another thing where there's a lot of misinformation out there, something that you should be aware of. If there's one takeaway from the week, it's that the Supreme Court doesn't always make the right decision, but sometimes they do, and their decisions aren't always what you expect. In this particular case with Ariel, the Supreme Court did their best to narrowly define a ruling that doesn't necessarily apply to anything but Ariel, and that's probably not a bad thing. In the meantime, have a great week ahead, have a great holiday, and happy birthday, America!